Francis, leader of the Francis Home Team Real Estate Company, coming to you today from a charming listing that we have right on the Fuquay-Varina, Willow Springs border. Real cute little house. These are actually first-time home buyers. When I help them buy the house, they now have children, want to trade up to a bigger home, and we're helping them to get their house sold. Hey, in speaking with them, this particular house has almost an acre of property, and in speaking with them, we talked about surveys, and I thought it might be helpful to share some information with you about surveys as well. You see, a survey is an extremely accurate measurement and delineation of the property lines for any given property. And there's really three primary purposes for a survey. The first is knowing specifically where your lot line is. Now, when this young family moved in, they didn't care that much about where the lot line was, but over time, when the children were young, they wanted to put a fence around their property. And then it becomes very important to know both where your property begins and ends and what your particular town or HOA requires in terms of setbacks, how close you're allowed to put the fence to the edge of your property line. Typically, you're not allowed to go directly on the edge of your property line, so you need to know what the setback is. Is it 18 inches? Is it 24 inches? What is your particular needs? So when they put the fence in, they did have a survey done, and now we know that their fence is well within the lot line and the necessary setbacks. So where your property begins and ends is the first reason for a survey. The second reason for a survey is that we want to be sure there's no encroachments. And an encroachment is where, intentionally or by accident, someone else's property has crept over your property line, or in turn, you might have crept onto their property line. So let's just pretend if my clients hadn't had a survey done, they could have understood their lot line goes to that old crepe myrtle tree in the back, built the fence out to that crepe myrtle tree, and found out, oh gosh, that's actually over onto the neighbor's property. That would be an encroachment. Another very common encroachment is where the driveway flares out at the end where it touches the street. Well, gosh, sometimes that flare actually goes over a couple of inches or perhaps several inches onto a neighbor's property. And those would be very common and typical encroachments. The third reason for a survey is you'd like to know, certainly for our buyers we recommend a survey, because we'd like to know if there's any easements through their property. And an easement is some government or HOA agency that has the legal right to go across your property with or without your permission. Now, the house that I live in Apex, we actually have an easement. There's a storm drain that takes the water from the street after a storm or melting snow, directs it to a large pipe, and ties it out into the system that's necessary for that. Well, that means every couple of houses in a subdivision there's going to be a storm drain with a real big pipe underneath the land. We happen to have one that goes down the side of our property. Now, with our particular property, it's of no consequence to us. We just know there's a big pipe buried underneath. But previous owners of our home had actually put a fence down that easement. In our particular area, that's not a big deal to the city. They don't automatically take it down or require you to take it down. But we know that if the city ever has to come and dig up that pipe for any reason, for replacement, for upgrading the pipe, for repair of the pipe, they will come and put grass seed back down, but they're not going to rebuild our fence for us because, truth be told, the previous owners of our home didn't really have the legal right to put a fence down onto that easement down along the lot line. So the three primary reasons to be interested in a survey is, one, to know specifically where your property begins and ends and the lines of your property. The second reason is to see if there's any encroachments by accident or design where someone accidentally went onto your property or you went onto theirs. And the third would be to be well aware of any easements so you can make that input in your decision to purchase that house and to know what you can and can't do on an easement. Hey, this is Mimi Francis, leader of